we finally have Metroid Prime 4 gameplay along with a subtitle, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and I am still recovering from that awesome trailer. I'm still kind of in disbelief that we actually have gameplay since I'm so used to not having gameplay for the past 7 years, but here we are. We have a trailer, we have a release year of 2025, and I am working on an analysis, but that won't come out for a while now. So instead, I want to look over this trailer and talk about some of the big and small details that really stood out to me about this game. For one, it begins stating that it's set in the year 20X9, which, for context, the events of the first Metroid game begin in the year 20X5. So what does this mean for the timeline placement of Metroid Prime 4? Well, after looking into this extensively, I can say I really don't know. There is a lot of inconsistencies within the Metroid timeline. Just looking at the Metroid wiki, it's not exactly clear how these years even work to begin with. What seems to be widely accepted though is that Metroid 2 and Super Metroid are set in the year 20X7. So if this were to be the case and Metroid Prime 4 follows this logic, then this game is actually set 2 years after the events of Super Metroid and not right after the Metroid Prime trilogy with Federation Force thrown in there. If this is true, that is sort of wild. But again, there is some inconsistencies with the timeline, so I would think that them bringing up the year 20X9 in this trailer means that the story is going to clear some of these up. Maybe there will be a recap of everything that's happened before Prime 4 with the years being mentioned. I'm not quite sure, but it would be nice to have this cleared up in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now then, let's get to Samus's Gunship, which looks different at first until you compare it to the one from Metroid Prime 3 and you realize it is pretty much exactly the same. It's just that the colors are a bit off, maybe because of the lighting, or Samus actually did give her Gunship a new paint job. But then of course, the star of the show herself, Samus Aran, pops out from the ship, doing her little superhero landing with the fanfare we know and love. Now her design is really interesting to me. She appears to be wearing the Varia suit because it looks almost exactly the same as it does in Metroid Prime 2 and 3. When you put them side by side, you can see there are some differences there. Her bodily proportions also look more human, like her shoulders aren't as comically wide, though they're still kind of comically wide here, and her head, it doesn't look to be as comically small. Basically, it seems like they made her look more human, at least from what we can tell by the armor, because we don't know what she looks like under this armor yet. Now getting to the gameplay, it runs at a fluid 60 frames per second from what we're seeing. I don't think the resolution is full HD because if we go by how Metroid Prime Remastered ran on the regular Switch, that was at 900p, but the frame rate was a fluid 60, so I expect the same thing to happen with Metroid Prime 4 as well. There's been baseless speculation that this game is running on a Switch 2 secretly, but I don't agree with that. I'm going to make a whole video on that topic right after this one, so stay tuned for that. But now let's get into the HUD, as there's quite a bit that's changed here. For one, her health bar is not just one straight line, it appears to have little cells in there, which is an interesting creative decision. And on the top right, the map returns. It looks like the same exact map we've seen in previous Metroid Prime games, only difference now is that instead of it being orange, it is blue. Who's to say if it'll be color-coded depending on what region she's in? I remember in Metroid Prime 2, that map would turn from orange to dark purple whenever she was on Dark Aether, so maybe the same thing will happen here. But what's interesting about the map now is that it has a compass. I kind of feel like something like this isn't too necessary unless there will be certain objectives you'll have to follow by knowing only which direction to go. So I'm looking forward to seeing if the compass is implemented in any clever ways. But now let's get to something more mysterious, like the missiles being on the D-pad. Someone on my live stream chat mentioned this when I did a live analysis of this trailer, and usually the D-pad is reserved for switching visors, so this is a pretty significant change. I imagine the rest of these slots will be filled with super missiles, ice missiles, and seeker missiles probably. But that also raises the question, how did Samus switch to her scan visor in this scene? There wasn't a little pop-up menu for switching between visors, there's not even a visor indicator that we see here on this HUD, so how did this happen? Maybe players just automatically lock onto scannable objects and immediately start scanning them, but I don't think that's the case, otherwise that could lead to some accidental scans, which would just kind of be annoying. I gotta feel feel like there's still a dedicated scan visor button. So a theory someone else in my chat came up with was maybe it's activated with one of the control sticks by pressing down on them. Maybe you press down on the right control stick and that activates the scan visor, or maybe even the left one. Who's to say? Either way, scanning is back and I am just so happy. But moving on to the final thing on her HUD, it's her radar, along with her danger indicating exclamation point. I like its more discreet placement here on the HUD. It doesn't take up too much room, but there are new elements that I and my chat have noticed. Of course, enemies are marked with red dots, but they change to orange X's whenever you lock onto them, which is just a nice little touch. Also, allies like Galactic Federation troopers are now indicated with green dots. I've also noticed that the space pirate ships are the exact same ones from Metroid Prime 3, but they don't appear to have any signs of phazon on them, which is a good thing because the planet phase is destroyed. Theoretically, all the phazon is gone, so why would it still be here on the ship? And as for the space pirates themselves, they are colored purple and green like in the first Metroid Prime game, but they have the pointy armor from Metroid Prime 2 and 3. I really like these space pirate designs. They are a perfect blend of the new and old, but let's be real, Metroid Prime 3 is 17 years old, so it's a blend of really old and slightly old. I've been saying old a lot. I should probably move on to the next thing. When Samus goes into her morph ball in the Federation research facility, we see a number of things like space pirates playing a game of breach and clear, along with some Galactic Federation troopers and scientists running away from the impending attack. And it looks like they're hiding some sort of device, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is something that the space pirates are after. Oh look, there's an energy tank. Energy tanks confirmed for Metroid Prime 4, everybody. Was there ever any doubt? But then there's of course the big baddie himself, Sylux. If you don't know who this person is, they made their introduction in Metroid Prime Hunters as a sort of rival to Samus, and he was also teased at the end of Metroid Prime 3 following Samus's ship, so they really left us hanging for nearly 2 decades. He was also featured at the very end of Federation Force, hijacking a Galactic Federation research facility to hatch a Metroid. I don't think this is the same facility, but I could be wrong. And speaking of Metroids, there's 2 of them following him. Or they're not Metroids, but they could be Mocktroids, which is something my livestream chat brought up to me, and I totally forgot that Mocktroids were a thing, as indicated by the amount of nuclei in their system, with Mocktroids having 1 and regular Metroids having 3. But now we close out with this final beautiful shot showing this new planet Samus is on with flying creatures and that giant tree from Avatar. We see her walk away from what looks like a portal, either that or it's a really fancy door. I'm willing to bet it's a portal, but what I really find amazing about this shot is the music that plays with it. Take a listen. It sounds very reminiscent of the Phendrana Drifts theme. I gotta wonder if the composer from the Metroid Prime trilogy, Kenji Yamamoto, has returned to compose the music in this game. It sounds distinctively like his style, and I couldn't be happier. The Metroid Prime trilogy has some of my favorite video game music, and this looks to be a perfect continuation of that style that I have been waiting to hear for over 17 years. Everyone, I am just so happy once again that we finally got a look at Metroid Prime 4 Beyond today, and I'm very excited to see more of the game before and when it releases next year. But what did you think of the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond trailer? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to GameXplain and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all our Metroid Prime 4 coverage. Until next time, bye bye.